I love you. I love you. I love every single one of you individually, and I love you as a community of faith. Some of you may say, how's that possible? I just met you today, and I can tell you with all sincerity that I love you. Whether you are here in the sanctuary or whether you are online, whether you've been online for years or whether this is your first time, I can tell you with complete sincerity that I love you. Now, I could not have said that 10 years ago, and it's not because I didn't know you 10 years ago. It's that back 10 years ago, I would not have thought that concept to be something that even made sense. But I've come to learn over time, particularly as my time of being a pastor, a full-time pastor over the last 9 years, that love is a skill. It's not an emotion. It's not something that was gifted to me. It's not something when I had my ordination and hundreds of people laid hands on me in a packed sanctuary that all of a sudden it went, ah! You like that note? It's pretty, right? But it's not like that. Love is a skill. And it is a skill that you can have. And it is a skill that not only are you invited to have, it is a skill that we are asked to develop, that we are asked to live into. In fact, it is a unique component of our faith tradition that we are explicitly told this is what we are supposed to do. Now, I was reminded of this during November when we went through a series of letters from the Apostle Paul, and Paul, whether he was chastising people or whether he was encouraging them, always in every letter calls them his beloved and tells them and reminds them how much that he loves the people. And it's important to have examples like that, and we have a phenomenal example of that. One of the best examples you can possibly have, the light that cannot be overcome, the light that became flesh, the light from God that became the baby born in Bethlehem. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now. And throughout Advent, we've been spending time in the Gospel according to John. And we're going to return to those first 5 verses again and then go on a little bit into other sections of John. But this is what makes our faith different. I'm not saying better or worse, but the unique claims of our faith about love. In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was a word that was understood by both the Greeks and the Jewish people. The Romans, all over the world, they understood that the Word meant a form of God or that which made everything in the world operate. All things came into being through the Word. And in Him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light that we have been talking about, the light that shines out and searches for people who are lost. The light that when people are in the midst of the storm and the darkness keeps their spiritual boat from crashing into the rocks. The light that shines, that guides people so they don't end up running aground and end up sinking to the bottom of the sea. The light that guides people home. The light that shines in the darkness that no darkness can overcome. And we talked about how important understanding the subtleties of this is, because it doesn't say when the light comes that all difficulty goes away. It doesn't say that. And that's sometimes when people lose their faith, when they say, well, I believe in God, I follow Jesus, I do this, I do that. Why is there so much difficulty in the world? Why is there still war? Why is there still difficulty? Why are children still suffering? Why am I suffering? And people say there must be no God. When in fact only what God promises is that in the midst of that difficulty, God will carve a clear path, like right through here, right down the middle, that if you choose to follow that light, will show you the best way to walk through all of that difficulty. That is the light that is promised. Now here it is, folks. This is why we are here. This is why there is Christianity. This is why we go to church. This is why we follow this guy, Jesus, because it says, and the Word became flesh. This light became this person, a real, living, walking, breathing person in this world. Now, we can have discussions and debates about exactly what he meant theologically, what he did in the stories, what he didn't do in the stories. There is room for reasonable debate in that. But there is zero historical question anymore. Zero. That Jesus, as an actual human being, lived on this earth, walked this earth, breathed our air, and walked and taught in Galilee, and was killed. There is zero historical question about the existence of Jesus. And it says, and the Word became flesh and lived among us. God's Son, who had a special connection to God, lived and breathed here so that we could see Him and follow Him, full of grace and truth. Full of grace and truth. Why is this such a big deal? It's such a big deal because in verse 18 it says, no one has ever seen God. You may have seen pieces of God in somebody else's eyes. If you've ever seen a baby, you can see a piece of God. If you've ever seen someone, if you've cared for in a homeless shelter or somewhere else, you have seen a piece of God. If you've ever walked on a mountain or taken just a walk in the area, you have seen pieces of God, but nobody in the history of the billions and billions and billions and billions of people who have ever lived, nobody has ever seen God. It is Jesus who comes from God, who is close and so close to the Father's heart, who has made Him known. This is the unique claim of Christianity. No other faith tradition makes this claim that there is a real, living person who could show us, that we could follow, that we could see the history of their actions, that we could listen to the documented words that He said and say, if we are following this, then we have the best representation in human form of what we are supposed to be if we are following God. We don't have to guess. We can just look at what He did and take the words of what He said. So here is some of what Jesus said, starting in John chapter 12. Jesus says, whoever sees me sees Him who sent me. So it's not just the author of the gospel according to John. Jesus said, if you want to know what God wants from you, just watch me. Watch me. And just do what I say, for I have set for you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Just watch what I've done for other people. Just do the things that I do and listen to the things that I say and do them, and it will guide you. And then the biggest one, the biggest commandment. Jesus left us one more commandment that trumps all the 10 commandments, that trumps all the other commandments that are out there. The last and greatest commandment that He gave, and it's all about this becoming light and then, becoming flesh. And it says, I give you a new commandment, that in December you shall celebrate my birthday. Right? No, but that's okay. It's because what's happened to Christmas? Christmas, for many people, is, you know what? I see the memes out there and everything else. Christmas means to me, feeling good and remembering to do good things. No, that's not what Christmas is about. That's a nice thing. You should be doing that 365 days a year. You shouldn't need a reminder about the 25th of December to do that. That's just basic decent human decency. Right? Oh, it's a wonderful time for me to get together with friends and family. You can do that on June 15th. You can do that on February 2nd. Groundhog Day, let's all get together and celebrate being together with family. There's no reason for that. That is what it has been reduced to. Now, one level up from that, which is a real good one, we do this in our household, and we've done it for years, and we did this with Garrett as a reminder about what the day was really about before we could really fully appreciate what it was about. And it is Jesus' what? Jesus' birthday, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to celebrate. It's not all the way, but it's a good thing to celebrate. And I happen to personally think that's a lot of fun. So why don't we do that? Eustace, give us a little happy birthday music. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jesus. Happy birthday to you. All right? And that's good, and I'm not about to throw a curveball at you saying that we shouldn't feel good about it, that you should feel good. Especially, how many times have you had that sung to you, like at a restaurant or somewhere else? Did you ever have that done on an organ of this quality with a master organist behind it? That was the best happy birthday ever, which Jesus 100% deserves. Anybody want to guess how old Jesus would have been? Come on, folks. All right, first of all, it's right here. If you're going to see it far, 2,023 years old. If you didn't know this already, the entire calendar of our world is oriented around his birth. So whatever year it is, that's how many years old Jesus is, and you can only be wrong for like a day, right? Or like a week in there between Christmas and New Year's. So it would have been 2,023 years old. But what does this actually say? What does this actually say? It says, the most important commandment, by far, like there is no close second. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. Meaning not just like, oh, I loved you a lot, so you love me back a lot. That's not what he means. Just as I loved you, the way I acted, the things I did for you, the way I acted and I showed you to do for other people, that is what I expect you to do. I don't suggest you do it. This is my commandment to you, that if you're serious about me, you are going to do this, and if you're not serious about me, you don't. It's the sole measure of whether you actually love and follow this guy, Jesus. By this, everyone will know whether or not you are my disciples. Well, maybe he just said that once. Maybe just said these things once about him being really close to God and being the one to look at and then to do this. So let's just look at the next 3 pages. I'm not going to read all of it, but 3 pages and see just in these 3 pages, only the Gospel of John, not even going into the other 3 Gospels, what Jesus has to say on this. Whoever has seen me has seen God. All right, so if you want to be following what God wants, just do what Jesus is doing. The one who believes me will do the works that I do. Will do the things that I did, and do works even greater. So one of the problems with our faith sometimes is that people are like, Jesus was so different. We throw him back up in the sky, put some shiny things around him, and say, we could never be like Jesus. The problem with that is, who tells us that's not true? Jesus. Jesus, right? The one who believes in me will do the works that I do and do more. There is nothing that Jesus did that you do not have the ability to do and more. And don't take my word for it. Quoting Jesus here. Goes on, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. They who have my commandments and keep them are the ones who love me. Those who love me will keep my word. He's not done yet. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. If you are my friends, you will do what I command you. I am giving you these commands so that you will love one another. People didn't repeat things for fun. There were no laptops, no printers. Right? Everything painstakingly written out, and they did not waste when they wrote this stuff down. Jesus repeated this over and over and over and over and over again to make sure we can't miss this point. And if we remember no other point of anything about Jesus, this is what Jesus wants us to remember. This is why Jesus came. This is what it is all about. This is what it's all about. That this light became a person and walked in history among us to show us how to act if we're serious about following him and we're serious about this faith. That this light, that this Jesus who shined out and went for the one and left the 99 behind so we could go get that one that had gone astray. That we do that. That when we see someone who is lost, and it may be awkward, it may be more comfortable to be in here, that Jesus wants us out there. finding that one rather than being here. That light is shining out to keep people from running aground and crashing their spiritual boat into the rocks that will send them into the bottom of the sea. And regardless of whether they have hit those rocks already, that we are supposed to guide them to keep from going into those rocks. But if they do, that we are to use that grace and go help them. Then help rebuild that boat. Help them get back in the water. Get in that boat with them while they are in pain until they are ready to be in that boat alone and go out again. That each of these things that Jesus did, expressing compassion, going to the people who were hurting and saying, I know that society says you are not supposed to be part of normal society. And we say, you know what, you're supposed to be part of ours. The kind that had the courage to go to the places and the people where people said you had no place belonging, you had no place going. This is why he came here, to show that it's not just an idea, but that an actual person can actually do this, and he tells us that we can do it too. And all it is a matter of muscle memory. It's a matter of putting one foot in front of the other and saying, what did he ask me to do? Am I doing it? What did he do? Am I doing it? And when you've got that good enough, just like this beautiful little girl is practicing her steps and developing her muscle memory so that she can walk and run, we're supposed to be doing the same thing ourselves with the way Jesus wants us to walk and develop, as we will be in our humanity doing what Jesus called us to do. So celebrate and enjoy, sing happy birthday. You're going to get to eat this later if you want to, because it's real cake and it's going to be in fellowship hall later. But if you remember only one thing from this entire Bible, only one thing, it's that God sent this light to become human so that we could see this human and follow him. And that the only way it counts to follow him is to do what he did, to love and love and love, not as an emotion but as an action, until that becomes your way. Until you get to experience the beautiful thing that I get to experience all the time looking out here, which is that I love every single one of you. And for many of you, it might not make any sense and you don't have that, but that is offered to you. That you'll walk by, you'll see people you've never met, you'll be like, I love them. That's what the world needs. Imagine each of you going out there and being those points of light out in the world, looking and then having people see you, seeing them as worthwhile. So many people don't feel that worth, and you, just by seeing them and loving them without ever having met them, will change their life, which will change someone else's life, which will change someone else's life, which will change yours in the process. The light became a real person. That is the unique claim of our faith. Claim that faith. Love that faith. Make love your greatest skill. Amen?